everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Cynthia, and on this channel I talk about metaphysics, psychology, and everything in between. Have you noticed a time when your actions and intentions didn't align? Or have you noticed that two fragmented sides to yourself, one that is kind and sweet and the other that is dark and mysterious? If so, this might have led you to struggle with feelings of guilt, shame, and self-judgment. But do not worry. You are not alone. As humans, we all have two sides to ourselves. We have the light side and we have the shadow side. The light side is made up of everything that we love and appreciate about ourselves. And then the shadow side is made up of everything that we loathe and despise about ourselves and that we repress and never show to the outer world, at least not consciously. So each one of us has a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, that darker and denser it becomes. Integrating parts of your psyche that have been repressed and have thus formed your shadow is essential to becoming a better version of yourself and getting closer to your true self. In this video, I'll be talking about what a shadow is, how to identify it, how to integrate it, and how to do shadow work. If this is something that you're interested in, please stay tuned and let's delve right in. Welcome back. Let us begin by describing what the shadow is. According to Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist that brought this concept to public awareness in the modern day, the personality is made up of the persona, which is the part of your personality that you show to the outer world, and then the shadow self, which remains hidden and private. The shadow can be described as the dark unknown side to your psyche, and that is made up of whatever you deny, despise, and loathe in yourself. All aspects that you perceive as inferior, evil, or unacceptable are what make up your shadow. So things like wrath, envy, resentment, jealousy, all those dark things that you rarely show to the outer world, they are what make up your shadow. The shadow is a moral problem that challenges your ego ideal, which according to psychologist Sigmund Freud is the part of your brain that imposes on itself concepts of ideal behavior developed from parental and societal standards. Now that you know what a shadow is, let us discuss how it is formed. So, your shadow was first formed at the childhood stage. If you expressed sides of your personality that were negative, say for example, if you're an aggressive child and you like to play really aggressive and rough games, or if you are at school and you are this silly child always distracting the class and the teacher would reprimand you and send you off to the corner to think about what you have done, you started to notice the behaviors that were met with appreciation and praise and those that were met with punishment. So the aspects of your personality that were met with immediate ridicule, those aspects of yourself you repressed, and when you started to repress those aspects of yourself, they started to form your shadow. Your shadow also continues to grow as you go through life. Sometimes you can experience some certain traumatic situations that leave you with emotional wounds that you do not like to show to the outer world. So you repress these emotional wounds, and they only make your shadow darker, stronger, and denser. Unfortunately, we not only repress destructive aspects of our personality, such as anger and untamed animal impulses, we also repress positive and life-promoting aspects of our personality, such as assertiveness or early attempts at creativity that maybe were met with ridicule. And these positive aspects stay hidden, especially if you're a person who struggles and is riddled with low self-esteem, anxieties, fears, and self-limiting beliefs. Carl Jung said that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness cautious. And since all these dark aspects of your personality were repressed into your shadow, your conscious mind is generally unaware of them, but you need to shine light on them. It is vital that you recognize these dark aspects of your personality and make them cautious. Here's how you can identify your shadow. Let's get into it. Number 1, identify your projections. Did you know that What you usually hate in others is a part of your aspect that you repressed into your shadow and you subconsciously recognize within yourself? Probably not. But get this, if it wasn't already in you, you wouldn't be bothered by it when you notice it in others. So you end up projecting onto others your fears, your concerns, your anxieties, and as a result, you seek to judge or punish them for reflecting those traits. For example, say you have a cousin named Carol who is a snob and you hate that Carol is a snob. Well, guess who else is also a secret snob? You guessed right, it's probably you. In case you do not know what you project onto others, here are 2 questions that you can ask yourself that will point to what your projections are. Question number 1, what do I dislike in others? Number 2, what do I usually judge in others? The answers to those questions could be possible aspects of your shadow self. Pay attention. The second way of identifying your shadow is through emotional triggers. Emotional triggers hold powerful information about the repressed aspects of your personality. For example, say your partner pays attention to other people and this triggers an emotional wound in you that you are not quite sure of, but the more you do shadow work, you realize that you have abandonment issues that you repressed and you never really got a chance to work through. This information will allow you to take a moment, pause, calm down before your shadow self comes in and overreacts. So it will be hard at first for you to take a moment and pause, but the more you do your shadow work, the more you'll get better at it, because you will realize that you are reacting out of fear of abandonment, which is an aspect of your personality that you repressed into your shadow and you never worked through. And eventually you will get to a point where you're not so hyper reactive. A great question to ask yourself that will help you identify your emotional triggers is, what is the underlying fear that is making me get triggered right now? The third way of identifying your shadow is by identifying repeating patterns in your life experiences. The reason why you may be experiencing negative, repetitive patterns is probably because you have negative aspects of your personality that you are not conscious of. So a great question to ask yourself that will help you identify these patterns is, what are some of the pesky habits that I have that just seem to get me into trouble all the time? Those different habits that you will list down are probably aspects in your shadow that were hidden from you and that you're not conscious of, but somehow always get you into trouble. At this point, you might be wondering, if these negative aspects of my personality were repressed, why do I need to bring them up again? Well, you need to bring them up again so that you can assimilate your shadow with your persona, so you can become whole, so you can learn to better manage the negative aspects that impact your life even when you don't know unconsciously, because, well, you are not aware of them. And this will create a number of benefits for you. For example, better relationships. You see, when you project onto others your fears, your concerns, your anxieties, this causes a strain and can actually damage your relationships, right? And since your shadow operates without your full awareness, you might end up saying something that you didn't mean to say or doing something that you didn't mean to do and regret it later. So when you get triggered in your relationships, it doesn't matter whether they are platonic or romantic, when you get triggered, realize that your shadow self has been activated. So then when you have this realization, take a moment, pause, and evaluate the situation rationally before you become reactive. In the end, this habit of pausing and rationally evaluating the situation will help you to manage your relationships, and then they will become stronger and better. The second benefit of doing shadow work or identifying your shadow is that doing shadow work will give you an understanding of the complex dynamics of your emotions and ways of relating to them. And accepting and integrating the undesirable aspects of yourself will lead you to fully loving yourself. Also, when you understand that these undesirable negative traits of your personality were developed as a result of childhood trauma or trauma that you developed as you went through life will get rid of any idea that there is something inherently wrong with you. Shadow work will also illuminate the flaws, the needs, and wants that you are taught to be ashamed of, and this will help you understand yourself better and learn to fully accept yourself. The third benefit of doing shadow work is that you will develop compassion for others. You will start seeing people realistically. You will notice the two sides to them, the light side and the dark side. And through doing shadow work, you'll also realize your own hypocrisy that you had been harboring. You will learn that what you hate and despise in others is probably what you hate and despise in yourself. This will help you work through any prejudices you may have against other people and your tendency of judging them harshly. Have you heard of the saying that how you treat someone says more about you than them? By doing shadow work, you will learn to become kinder to people because you will start projecting less when you are interacting with them, and you will also minimize negative and unhealthy conflict. Fourth benefit of doing shadow work is that it will help you retrieve any hidden talents or gifts that you have. Do you recall earlier on when I mentioned that we do not only repress the negative aspects of our personality, but we also repress the positive and life-promoting aspects of our personality? So this might be any creative endeavors that maybe when you expressed as a child, you are immediately met with ridicule and frowned upon by your parents or peers. So for example, if you are a child who desired or dreamt of being a musician, but because your parents were not accepting of this career choice, you brush it off to the side, and this left you feeling empty and disconnected from your true desires and your true calling. So by doing shadow work, you'll be able to discover and reconnect with these latent gifts and talents that you had repressed but innately delighted and interested you as a child, and you'll be able to bring them back to your consciousness. The best question to ask yourself that will help you unearth these talents and gifts is, what would I do if I wasn't afraid? Then benefit number 5 of doing shadow work is that, or identifying your shadow, is that it helps with your manifestation. From a spiritual standpoint, the shadow self is a separate entity with its own energy field. So if you notice that you have been you have been trying hard to manifest the life of your dreams, but somehow you just can't seem to get it right, it is probably time that you looked into your shadow self. Because since your shadow is a separate entity of its own, it has its own energetic field around it that attracts energy that's in vibrational alignment with it. And since your shadow is made up of all the negative, repressed, dark aspects of your personality like envy, jealousy, anger, wrath, it will attract energy that's in vibration with it. So if no matter how hard you're trying to manifest good things in your life, if you have not assimilated your shadow, you will continue to attract those negative situations, people, or whatever the case may be, unconsciously. So what you need to do is that you need to look into your shadow self. Invite it to have a conversation with you. Assimilate it. Because what that will do is that it will enable you become conscious of those negative aspects that you repressed, and you'll start working through them. So if it's jealousy that you're having, instead of brushing it to the side, you invite it, you accept it, you work through it. If it is anger, you work through your anger. But you can never work on something that is hidden and tucked back in the back of some part of your personality called the shadow self. You can't sweep things under the rug and pretend that your house is clean. So that is why even if you are trying to manifest the life of your dreams, if you have certain negative aspects that you have not worked through or that you have not allowed yourself to become conscious of, you will continue to attract negative things that are in alignment with your shadow self. So it is time that you really looked into those darker aspects of your personality. So the good part, how to practice shadow work. Number 1, through journaling. Writing down your emotional triggers is an excellent way to identify your unconscious traits. For example, if you go through a negative situation, instead of brushing it off to the side, write down everything as it happened, without censoring yourself, without judging yourself. Just write down everything how it happened. For example, if as a child you were told quite a lot to shut up because maybe your parents or your peers thought that you talked a lot, you ended up repressing this side to yourself, and you thought that, oh my god, I should never talk a lot because, well, ever since I was a child I was told to shut up because I talk a lot. So you repress that side to yourself. But imagine you had a disagreement with someone and maybe they mentioned an innocuous statement like, I wish you could keep quiet for a second so I could explain to you how I feel. Even if that person did not mean for that statement to offend you, because this is something that you repressed in your shadow self, the moment that person mentioned that, it triggered you. Your muscles tensed up, your heart rate went up, your blood pressure rose, and you saw red. So if you write down all these things, how it happened, what the person said to you that might have triggered you, the thoughts that were running through your mind when they said that statement, when you write down all these things, you'll start to identify your emotional triggers, and then this information will help you work through them. And the next time such a thing happens, you will because you'll be coming from an informed place, you will learn how to pause, take a moment, and evaluate the situation rationally. For example, in the situation that I've just played out for you, maybe in that moment you will take a pause and realize, which, you know what, this person probably never meant to offend me. It was just an innocuous statement and I shouldn't let it get to me. So writing down is also actually very therapeutic, because it will help you work through those things. Every single time you're writing down, you're releasing that emotion onto paper. So you will not keep all those things bottled up inside you. So journaling is an excellent way of doing shadow work. So the second way of doing shadow work is by having an inner dialogue with yourself. This is a very strange way of doing shadow work, but I find that I enjoy it. So realizing I can't afford therapy, I decided to get creative and use my mind. So I imagine an imaginary therapist when I'm going through whatever negative situation in my life. Say, for example, I'm feeling sad or depressed or disillusioned about something. I imagine that I'm seated in front of a therapist and she's asking me all these questions about how I feel about the situation, what is going through my mind, or if I had an altercation with someone, why that altercation happened, what feelings that altercation stirred up in me, what thoughts were running through my mind. So I talk and talk and talk, and I realize that through the talking, I'm actually working through my feelings, even if it's to an imaginary therapist. It really helps. And sometimes I can get those aha moments, like a breakthrough moment, like they say in therapy, where I'm like, okay, so I'm feeling like this because this person said this to me, or my mind is coming up with these kinds of thoughts which trigger me in this way. So I realized that these kinds of thoughts do not work for me. And then I imagine my therapist saying, how about we think about the situation this way? How about we look from the angle of gratitude? I like to think that that imaginary therapist is my higher self. And I like to think of my higher self as a person who is always coming from an abode of love, peace, and kindness. So even if I am mad about a certain situation that I went through with someone, I imagine my therapist is always rational and thinking from a place of love, which sometimes actually gets me mad. Say, for example, I want to be mad at the person that I had an altercation with. My higher self is going to tell me, but Cynthia, maybe you are wrong in this sense. Have you thought about it this way? So having that inner dialogue with yourself is important, especially if you're a person who doesn't really like to write down your feelings. You can practice just having this imaginary conversation with your higher self or your therapist, whatever you want to term this person. The third way of practicing shadow work is through meditation. When you have gone through a negative situation or a traumatic situation, or when you're in a depressive state, low moods, sometimes it helps to just keep quiet and listen and observe your mind and the kinds of thoughts that it will manufacture. Before you know it, you'll start to notice that inner toxic critic come up and start hurling all sorts of negative things at you, like, you are such an idiot, who do you think you are? You are such a fool. When these thoughts come up, instead of brushing them to the side, realize that this inner toxic critic is coming from your shadow self that longs for acceptance. So embrace your shadow self. Show compassion for your shadow self. When you start having these negative thoughts, accept them, invite them into your awareness, and work through them. Because remember, your shadow self was first formed through judgment and non-acceptance. Show compassion to yourself by saying things like, I fully accept myself, I am loved, I am worthy, I am enough, I have a lot to offer, and just start feeling the feelings that are stirred up by just you using those affirmations. Before you realize it, you'll start working through your negative thoughts, feelings, instead of brushing them off to the side. So meditation is also a really great way of practicing shadow work. The fourth way of practicing shadow work is by analyzing your dreams. Carl Jung, the psychologist that brought this concept of the shadow self to the public awareness, valued dreams as a tool of assessing any unconscious parts of your personality. And he said that you can use your dreams to identify any patterns or symbols that identify the parts of your mind that you are usually not aware of. Noting down the dreams that you're having will provide insight into any fears, concerns, or anxieties that you have that are part of your shadow self, but you may not be conscious of in your waking life. So to conclude this video, your shadow plays a vital role in your psyche, in your energy, in your physical health, in your maturity and creativity. So you cannot expect some divine force to come and save you from the suffering caused by the unconscious behaviors of your shadow. You are your only chance for redemption and catharsis. So take charge and integrate your shadow into your persona so that you can become conscious and aware of these dark aspects of yourself so you can better manage your life. It is important to note, however, that doing shadow work will not simply eliminate any fears, guilt, or anxieties that you have. What it will do is that it will help you get rid of any recriminations against yourself when these feelings are stirred up within you. Integrating your shadow through practicing shadow work should be a lifelong process because it will help you get closer to self-realization, improving not only yourself but also the relationships around you. Remember, there is no light without a shadow. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up. Please let me know in the comment section below what you thought about the video or any other practices that you may have in mind of practicing shadow work. Please remember to subscribe to my channel as that will help me out a lot. I'll see you in my next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.